Today, I get to sit down with a man I've been a fan of for a long time. His name is Dan Buettner, and he taught us all what blue zones are. So Dan's an interesting guy. He's an explorer, he's a journalist, he's a storyteller, he's a scientist, and he's really brought a new way of thinking about life and how we want to live better, longer lives. So he's an expert on longevity. He's done the work. You've seen him on Netflix with the new special he has out that's terrific. You've read his books. You've seen all his writings and teachings. I'm thrilled to have had the chance to spend some time with him today. I think you'll really learn a lot and get to know a guy who's a pretty neat and special guy. Oh, and by the way, he owns 3 cycling records that are in the Guinness Book of World Records. Stay tuned.
If you're eating a Blue Zones type diet, which is the diet of centenarians, which is 90% or so whole plant-based food. There's a little meat, little eggs, little fish, but mostly it's sort of peasant ingredients. You're going to live about 10 to 12 years longer than you're eating, and then if you're eating a standard American diet. And this comes from a meta-analysis which followed millions of people for 30 years. So the only way we're going to get close to eating like that is if people start eating at home again, and the only way they're going to do that now is, number one, if it's fast, people perceive they don't have time to cook. Number two, it's easy. People have lost their skill to cook. Number three, it's affordable. And number four, and I would argue the most important, is it's delicious. There's so much hyper palatable food out there that unless you can cook something at home that competes with all that ultra processed junk that napalms our taste buds, we're not going to eat it. So I worked with Stanford, and we scraped 650,000 of the best recipes off the internet, and we analyzed the flavor patterns that Americans love the most. We found 7 of them, and based on those 7 insights, and with the guidelines from what people in blue zones actually ate over the last 100 years, we formulated 100 one-pot meal recipes. And the name of my book is Blue Zones One Pot. My last Blue Zone Kitchen book was a #1 New York Times bestseller, and I'm hoping this one exceeds it. And even life expectancy. So life expectancy continues to go up, albeit much slower than it did when we were middle-aged and then, young.
Did we have a hiccup in the last couple of years because of drug overdoses in the U.S. and COVID?
Yes, those are the 2 big ones. But the overall problem is the weight of chronic disease, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancer, and dementia. We lose about 760,000 Americans a year prematurely to an avoidable chronic disease. So that's more Americans than we've lost in all wars collectively. So chronic disease is a much bigger, we should be spending more money on fighting chronic disease if measured in American lives lost than we do in the military budget, but we don't do that. And the problem with our healthcare system, it's got very good at addressing sick people. And life expectancy keeps going up, but the result is we just have we're keeping sick people alive for longer. That's what our healthcare system is doing, and it's astronomical cost. When what we should be doing is shifting the focus to keeping people healthy in the first place. The problem, and you keenly understand profits, and you keenly understand incentives. There's no incentive in the healthcare economy to keep people healthy. Nobody makes money if you stay healthy, Jim. The healthcare economy makes money if you go out and get a prescription filled, or you go see a doctor for a procedure or a test, or you rent a hospital bed and services. And the countries that I've found that have the highest health adjusted life expectancy, proportionally speaking, they're making a much bigger investment in keeping people healthy in the first place. You often hear, let's get more healthy fruits and vegetables or fresh fruits and vegetables into the inner city. But there's a lot of friction there because, they're not shelf stable. Many places that have the necessary refrigeration. It's a pretty big leap from going from, eating at Taco Bell or something to eating a fresh salad or a carrot out of the ground. But there's an intermediate step when you look at the diet of the world's longest lived people, the number one ingredient is beans. If you're eating a cup of beans a day, it's worth about 4 extra years of life expectancy.
Good life
Good
expectancy,
life
right?
expectancy.
Healthy life expectancy.
Yeah. And whole grains are the other. And whenever you take a bean and a grain and you put them together, you get a whole protein. So in other words, a bean taco with and a corn tortilla, that has as much protein as a small hamburger, or beans and rice. Again, you got a bean and a grain, a whole protein, or pasta and fagioli. I would rather start in the inner city with those. Why? They're cheap, they're shelf stable, and the recipes people will immediately recognize use these ingredients. And you're just eliminating a lot of the friction to actually getting people to eat these things. And while I love people to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, organic all the time, it's just not realistic in the immediate future. Health behaviors are contagious. The blue zone. One of my top prescriptives, if you want to live longer, is curate your immediate social circle. We know that if your three best friends are obese and unhealthy, there's a 150% better chance that you'll be overweight. Loneliness, laziness, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, those are all measurably contagious. Nicholas Christakis at Yale has done this work. So, curating, being very intentional who you let into your inner circle. And while I would not tell you to dump your unhealthy, unhappy, toxic friends, they probably need you. I would say that perhaps the best intervention, the best thing you can do to add good years to your life is bring some people into your immediate circle whose idea of recreation is pickleball or golf, and who care about on a bad day and who challenge you. And it's not a bad idea to have a vegan or vegetarian in that immediate circle, because they're going to show you how to eat delicious plant-based food. Every blue zone, they celebrate not youth but age.
Yep.
And that's a value we ought to be paying attention to.
Today I get to speak with Dr. Dean Ornish. He's a man who I've followed for decades now. His writings and teachings have had a major impact on my life, and I was really looking forward to our conversation today. He's one of those people who has been at the forefront of understanding and teaching how lifestyle, that is, what we consume, how we move, how we interact, what relationships we have, all mixed to form the influence on our health. He's been at the forefront of lifestyle medicine now for probably 4 decades, and I think you'll find his dialogue to be one of great interest. And I even think that it could definitely impact how you feel about your life, your choices, your lifestyle, and how you can seize control of those and in some cases prevent issues, and more importantly, reverse things that are maybe not the way you'd like to have them.
Well, I think it's actually occurring on both ends of the spectrum where, yes, there's a lot more obesity, there's a lot more eating junk food, there's a lot more ultra-processed foods out there. It's very easy, with the fat, salt, and sugar being manufactured to really be addictive in many cases. It is an issue. But I think there's also, on the other end of the spectrum, I'm encouraged by the fact that plant-based diets are becoming much more mainstream. People have so many more food choices to eat healthy foods that are also delicious and nutritious. So to me, awareness is always the first step in healing. That's why I've spent almost 50 years doing these randomized controlled trials. They're really hard to do. It's hard to get funding for studies that people think is impossible, and everything we've done was thought impossible at the time. And without the funding, you can't show it works. And if they don't think it works, they don't want to fund it. So we generally raise the money as we go along and just kind of hope for the best. And fortunately, it's always worked out. But we showed for the first time that heart disease could be reversed. People used to view heart disease then the way they view Alzheimer's today, that once you have it, the best you could do is slow it down. We found if you make bigger changes, you could often reverse it. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, early stage prostate cancer, changing gene expression, lengthening telomeres, and now Alzheimer's. It's the same lifestyle intervention for all these things. And I think there's a growing awareness that's happening, not just among the research community, but in the general public. But we're seeing, I think, both ends of the spectrum right now. And, for example, when people make lifestyle changes and they have heart disease, their angina goes away in 90% of the cases in a few weeks. First of all, I found that even more than being healthy, people want to feel free and in control. This goes back to, don't eat the apple. That didn't go so well, and that was God talking. It's more about a sense of choice and empowerment. And so if people realize, if you say, don't do this and don't do that because you might get a heart attack if you keep doing those things, for a month or so after someone's had a heart attack, they'll do pretty much anything that the doctor says, but
Yes.
then they stop doing it because we all know we're going to die. The mortality rate is still 100%. It's one per person, but we don't think about it most of the time because it's too scary. So fear is not really a sustainable motivator. But
Interesting. Yeah.
and the paradox is also that sometimes it's easier to make big changes in lifestyle than small ones, because when you only make small changes, you'd only get small benefits. In all of our studies, we found the more you change your lifestyle, the better you get, and whatever we're measuring, whether it's heart.
And you've talked about that in each of your works,
Exactly.
each of your bodies of work. It's
So,
big is easier than little,
exactly.
from a behavioral point of view.
Because when you make big changes, you feel so much better so quickly in most cases. Then it reframes the reason for change from fear of dying or fear of something bad happening to joy and pleasure and love and feeling good. And so in the case of someone with heart disease and their angina goes away, they say, oh, wow, I can, as I said before, I can make love with my spouse and play with my kids and go back to work and do all the things that bring meaning to my life. Yeah, I like eating junk food, but not that much, because what I gain is so much more than what I give up, as opposed to preventing something bad from happening years from now that people don't really think is ever going to happen. Albert Einstein once said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And so the essence of my program is eat well, move more, stress less, and love more. And people say, I get the eat well part and the move more. What is the stress less? Okay, that's kind of weird meditation, but okay, I'll try that. And what is this love more stuff, And it turns out that anything that study after study, I wrote a book back in 1998 called Love and Survival that reviewed at the time hundreds of studies and now literally tens of thousands of studies showing that people who are lonely and depressed and isolated are 3 to 10 times more likely to get sick and die prematurely when you compare them.
It's an amazing percentage.
It's higher than smoking. It's higher than anything. And in fact, it affects, whether we smoke or overeat or do things like that, because oftentimes people will say things like, I've got 20 friends in this pack of cigarettes and they're always there for me and nobody else is. You're going to take away my 20 friends? What are you going to give me? And so 3 to 10 times increased risk of getting sick and dying from pretty much everything. There's nothing really that has that kind of impact on us. And yet it's something we don't really learn much about in our medical training until recently. Vivek Murthy, the former Surgeon General, who's a good friend, wrote a book.
He did some really bold work when he was
really bold work. Yeah, he's a good friend. And in fact, I just got a text from him yesterday. And he wrote a book on the importance of social networks and healing. It's like intimacy is healing. Even the word healing comes from the root to make whole. Yoga is from the Sanskrit to yoke, to unite, union. These are really old ideas that we were rediscovering. And over the past 50 years, besides getting fatter and healthier, the social networks have really begun to broke. The social networks that really bind us together have broken down. 50 years ago, most people had an extended family they saw regularly. They had a job that they felt pretty stable, and they got to know their coworkers. They had a church or synagogue or mosque or club or something they went to regularly. They had a neighborhood where they had 2 or 3 generations of people who grew up together and really got to know each other. And many people today don't have any of those things. And they say, well, okay, that's just modern life, but we pay a price for that. And the social networks like, Facebook and so on, one of the studies that Ann and I cited in our book was that the more time you spend on Facebook, the more depressed you are. And why is that? Because it's not true intimacy. When you grow up in a family of 2 or 3 generations, they really know you. They don't just know your Facebook profile or all the good things, that you put in your bio. They know where you messed up. They know where you got busted or you were suicidally depressed in my case or whatever. And you know that they know, and they know that you know that they know, and they're still there for you. There's just something really primal and visceral about, I see you, as James Cameron wrote about in Avatar, which is really an old African proverb. I see all of you and I accept all of you, warts and all. So our support groups are designed to kind of recreate that experience, to create a sense of safety, that what goes in the group stays in the group, that you can talk about what's really going on in your life without fear that someone's going to judge you or criticize you or give you glib advice. They'll just be there with you and they'll talk about their experiences. And that may sound so simple, and yet it's the part of our program that people often have the most questions about, and yet it's invariably the part that's the most meaningful because it's such a fundamental, primal human need that so often goes unfulfilled that when we can give that to people, then they're much more likely to make lifestyle choices that are life-enhancing than ones that are self-destructive.
We're joined here today by Arturas Samulis, who is a bunch of things, even though he's a very young man. He's a guy who's got experience in business development, in marketing. He's a well-known speaker, sought-after expert on longevity. He's an entrepreneur, and he reigns from Lithuania, which produces lots of entrepreneurs lately.
Biological age is your real age. I would say that our passports, they all lie to us because sometimes we can be really younger, but biologically, by our cell age. It's our cell's age, not what's the number written in the passport. And why number longevity? Why number? Because I see that in all my life, everything is about numbers. Everything is about numbers. Everything is coded in numbers. We are measuring everything, our age, distance, our marks, everything in numbers. So I do believe that in the near future, when we will meet each other, our friends, we will ask, what's the length of your telomeres, or what's your biological age? It's not about, how old are you?
And what changed? What in your personal routine changed to achieve that dramatic reduction in your biological age in just 1 year?
So I strongly believe that dealing with the stress, which I had before in that 2024, dealing with the stress from 2024 February till this year February, I managed the stress with the cold exposure. I started with a cold shower, standing up there for 3 minutes, and then cold plunges, ice plunges, all the temperature close to zero in Celsius. Yeah. So, and I do believe that this water thing, I was going to swim to the swimming pool. I understood, I got a feeling that the water is my therapist. I'm going to swim. I'm releasing the stress. I'm going into the water. I'm becoming with the nature as one, and really, I felt that the nature is that thing that I should look after it more and go for walks into the nature. So this thing, and I tried the meditation. So I'm using a special device, actually. I'm not sure if you have this in the United States, but these guys, they are from Finland. They created very interesting thing. I have it actually close to me, and there is a device where you when you put it on your head, and using lights over here, lights and music from the headphones, it's working with your neuroplasticity. Yeah, so this thing helped me a lot. It's very interesting. When you are going for sleep, when you lay down in your bed, so I'm listening something relaxing. But if during the day I have a meeting and I really need to focus on something, I'm using this app with the same thing. So I choose the program for focusing, just for focusing. So it goes for 11 minutes, and after 11 minutes, I'm really because these lights are so bright. Really, your eyes are closed, but you see the lights, and your brain it playing games. It really. If I will use it, the same program, and I will give it to you. You will tell me, for example, you saw so many blue lights. I will tell you that I saw red lights. The same program. So our brain reflects on those lights, and the more you use it, the more neuroplasticity you create.
So I've heard two things now that you changed in your life. that you think contributed to your reduction in your biological age of 20-something months after just a year. And that's embracing cold therapies, swimming, cold therapies, cold plunges, ice plunges, and the use of this device, which is a headset which creates, with an app that creates different kind of audio stimulant and visual stimulant through your closed eyelids of different lights. And those two things, is there anything else that you've changed that caused this biological improvement?
I strongly believe that my sleep hygiene added a lot.
And how did you change your sleep regimen?
I started doing the opposite thing. Usually, we set alarm in the morning to wake us up. So I was sitting one day last year, and I was thinking, okay, if I will set alarm for 9 p.m. to bring me to the bed. So it worked a lot. It worked. It went very good, actually.
So you upended the alarm routine to not wake you, but remind you to go to bed.
Yes, correct.
And how many hours of sleep do you try and achieve, and what do you get to on average?
So my goal is to reach at least 8 hours, but I used to track my sleep for the last 5 years, I think, with different devices. And the average, when we are counting the year, is 7.3 hours in average. So I have something to reach. It's very interesting about the sleep. I do believe that you know these things for sure, but the science says that if the human sleeps sleep less than 6 hours for some longer period, let's say couple of months, less than 6 hours, our body activates cancer cells. So that's very, not promising any good.
So you're saying the science directly correlates the amount of sleep you have or don't have,
yes,
and its contribution to the body's ability to create cancers.
Yes, cancer cells. Yes, and very interesting thing that either you sleep too less, let's say less than 6 hours for a long time, or you sleep, let's say, for 10 hours. So these things are kind of the same. You cannot sleep like too long as well. It's not good for your body as well. You don't have energy. Doesn't matter that you slept for 10 hours or so. So this year, I made myself a goal to become a professional sleeper.
What's the one myth about health that you think people are most misinformed about?
This was my message 2 weeks ago in the biggest conference in Baltic states. We had 8,000 people live, and then thousands of people online. They have, I think, 5 or 6 stages, 250 speakers, and one of the stage was dedicated for longevity. So I was invited to speak for the second year in a row. That's a huge honor, because 90 or so % are scientists or doctors, and I am not. So for me, it's something to prepare and to speak. So talking about myth, I was delivering a message that our destiny is not written in our genes. That was my message. People, and myself as well, I used to say that, if my parents are obese or they have depression, so am I. So it's written in my genes, and I cannot change anything. So unfortunately, it's very sad that people are keeping to continue this, talk. And I know the way how to help those people. Probably, I hope so. If they will do genome testing, genome sequencing, most probably, they will find that they don't have this genome modification in their genes. So this means they will never have depression. They are not tend to have depression in this hard way. So that's a message I'm really feeling in my cells that it's not written.
Well, I'm a fan of yours, Chip. I admire your career, the things you've done. You've been an entrepreneur. You built a hotel chain, started as a very young man, 26 years old, I think.
Yep.
Built it into a $350 million company. And then I certainly watched your success at Airbnb and all that you did for that company and creating a brand where I just don't have that creative gene where I could see around the corner like you guys were able to. I remember hearing Travis present early in the formation of the company at an Allen and Company event, and I said, "That's an interesting idea." Back then, he was showing a picture of an old airplane fuselage in a jungle as one of the facilities they were renting out.
Yeah, the thing about my experience at Airbnb was it confirmed to me that in my 50s, I would no longer be youthful, but I could be useful. And to be useful,
You use that term in Midlife Manifesto, and I love it.
I just think it's a great, simple term. And I think unfortunately, there are a lot of people who want to be youthful for the rest of their life. And yes, I want to be healthy and I want to be able to still exercise a lot. I'm 65 next month. I want to be able to be youthful on many levels, but that's not the goal of life. If the goal of life is to be youthful forever until you die, then you have missed all kinds of other opportunities. And that's what started to become clear to me in my 50s. I spent 7.5 years at Airbnb, 4 years full-time, 3.5 years part-time. And I learned what it meant to be in a tech company for the very first time. I learned millennial travel habits and like what's it like to work in a company full of millennials. But I think more than anything, I really learned the possibility that we have a lot to learn from each other. I'm a boomer. You're probably a boomer.
I am. I'm almost 10 years older than you.
Okay. So as boomers, in past generations, the older you were, the more power you had and the more wisdom you had. But to be able to be at this age now and realize that I am learning as much from younger people as they're learning from me, and that kind of mutual mentorship is necessary because Jim, by the year 2027, the U.S. Department of Labor says that the majority of Americans will have a younger boss.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So it's a whole different era, and we better learn from each other in a whole new way. We tend to focus on the quantity and not the quality when it comes to longevity these days. So there's a lot of obsession around how long you will live, but not how well you'll live or how deep you'll live or some of the more important questions. And I think both are important, depth and length. And so MEA really specializes in the depth piece of it. We also do longevity workshops and things like that. So it's not like we neglect the length.
I would suspect when your chapters come together in MEA chapters, and I would suspect that a couple of things are happening there. One is you find people, birds of a feather, people who are interested in living a better life, people who are interested in developing new relationships, having new experiences. And I would suspect that creates a wonderful sense of community, which is, by the way, self-fulfilling in terms of having better, healthier, longer lives.
Yes. Yeah. There's the number one variable for living a longer, healthier, and happier life is community, is your social relationships. And so if someone has an amazing experience, in a 5-day workshop in Baja or Santa Fe, wonderful. But we don't want them to then go back home and feel like, okay, now what do I do? Now you do have your cohort, and the cohort stays together, and they have Zoom calls at least once a month. But wouldn't it be nice to meet people, where you live, at home, who have been through the MEA program, have a common ethos, and then you can start going for hikes with them, or going out to restaurants, or doing a book club or something like that. And that's really what this is. And if we get it right, Jim, we learn our lessons along the way, and we do something that the developmental psychologist Eric Erickson calls generativity. What we learn is that we are supposed to be we're supposed to be a catalyst for teaching other people who are younger than us what we're learning along the way. I define wisdom as metabolized experience, in other words, life lessons,
mindfully shared for the common good. Because wisdom, unlike being savvy or smart, is meant to be a social good. But the mindfully shared is critical because there was a few years ago, there was this meme, okay boomer. They said like, okay boomer.
Yes, yeah, sure.
And the story was basically an older guy in the office was telling a younger woman in the office how the world worked. And he was trying to he thought of his war stories as wisdom. And the truth is he probably had some lessons there. But the way he was bringing it up to her, he wanted her to sit at his feet as if, she's supposed to learn from him. And so metabolized experience, mindfully shared for the common good, that is really what wisdom is. In nursing homes, when they give older people some potted flowers or plants to take care of and water, and that those people are more likely to live a longer life because they have purpose. They have a sense of usefulness, and it can be very small. It doesn't have to be big. In fact, as you get older, it may be smaller and smaller, but there's something that gets you up in the morning and gives you a sense that you have value in the world.